Hi, my name is Sam, and welcome to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about somebody who's had an absolutely crazy career, probably the most successful career out of anybody in comics. We're going to be talking about somebody who has a massive influence in pop culture. The man's worked on Spider-Man, he's worked on Hulk, he's worked on Wolverine, created his own characters, he's worked on movies, he makes toys. I'm sure that you've guessed it. Ladies and gentlemen, talking about Todd McFarlane. We're going to be rating some covers, rating some character designs, looking at the man's overall career. Before we get started, we gotta say a prayer to the Todd Father. These sold like hotcakes. Let's paint it gold and sell it again. Amen. Alright, well, without further ado, let's hop into it. This is going to be the TODD-RESPECTIVE. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a look at the art of Todd McFarlane, The Devil's in the Details. I figured that this would be a good book to kind of run through and use as a guide for this video, because this pretty much touches on about everything that the dude has done in his career, from the very start, you know, him doing political cartoons and whatnot for his family back in Canada, and then as well, you know, toy production, movie production, things like that, to kind of what he's been working on in modern day. When we do flip through this, we'll stop occasionally, talk about some things. We're gonna flip through it. We're also gonna rate some covers, rate some character designs, give it top 3 comics, so on and so forth, from the Todd Father. This is a book that you can pick up pretty much Amazon, Barnes & Noble has it, I believe, fairly cheap. I think I got this thing for like 20 bucks, 25 bucks. It's about 12 years old now at this point. But yeah, this book was originally $40. I got it about half off, and you still can't get it about half off. There is a hardcover version of this. I've seen it online. It's fairly expensive, but this paperback version, still get it pretty, like I said, you can get it pretty cheap. So, to start in this book, you get a foreword by Stan Lee. With this being from 13 years ago, there's been rumors that he probably didn't even write this. It's probably just like a pen, ghost writer, whatever you want to call it. Hard to say. That's the word on the street. That's good old Stan actually didn't even write that foreword. Don't take no for an answer. This is something that Todd talks about a lot through his career, and he touches on a lot in this book. We'll stop and look at some of the stuff, that the rejection letters and whatever that he has sent, all the submissions that he sent to companies, letters, everything like that, that had come back to him, just, you know, rejecting his work, never hearing back from people. This is things that you run into as an artist, unfortunately, or just as a creative in general. Most of the time when you do reach out to people, you don't hear from them, or if you do hear from them, it's usually a professional, like, sorry, but I can't do this, keep working at it, type of things. I guess a little inside baseball about myself. I've had a handful of rejections, people, you know, ignoring emails, letters, submissions, things like that. It happens. Gotta keep your head down and keep at it. You know, Todd being a really big influence on myself, that's really something that's like one of the biggest things that I pick up from him. Just gotta keep at it. You have a guy like Todd, and this is, you know, really early stuff that he was drawing in his sketchbooks. And you have a guy drawing like that towards, you know, the start of his career, and even he was getting, you know, rejected. Kind of have to put that into perspective a little bit if you are trying to, you know, get into comic books or art in general, is that you have guys like Todd who are the greats, and even guys like him had people trying to stonewall them. Real early Todd Spidey design, kind of wonky anatomy. You can still tell that he's doing tube shapes and ovals and circles and things like that to really find his anatomy. These buildings are pretty good buildings for being that early in his career. Buildings and things like that is something that I really don't struggle with, or I don't even like really practice drawing, is because I have a background in drafting. I did boatloads and boatloads of construction, drafting, and what else, pretty much from middle school, and even when I was an engineer in the Marine Corps, I did a lot of drafting. Drawing buildings and things like that is pretty easy to me, but anatomy, man, that's something that I kind of struggle with. It's really not necessarily drawing the figures, it's contorting the figures, having them be in different positions and things like that. Something that I struggle with. So sometimes I gotta kayfabe my figure drawings. That's why I study a lot of Steve Rude and Alex Toth, because I'm trying to get better at my figure drawing. Early ideas for Spawn, that old Spawn logo with the fire in it, Now, I honestly kind of really like this logo and wish that they would do throwbacks to it on occasion. Just gonna keep moving here. Oh, I've never seen this before, but this Howard the Duck down here is pretty cool. And what's interesting is it looks like some of these drawings he was doing blue line on. Yeah. So what I always thought was interesting is that I think his biggest weak point is the anatomy, especially in hands. He really struggles with, and I still think even to this day, when you look at issues of like Gunslinger's Bond and things like that he's occasionally drawing in, the hands are still kind of wonky. I'm curious if he ever worked throughout his career to study hands and draw them better, because pretty much from day one until now, his hands all pretty much kind of look the same. Like these ones here aren't terrible, but when you look at a lot of his hands, especially if they're folding over, he takes his fingers, these two middle fingers, and he does this with them. It's obviously easier to draw this, to have 3 appendages rather than the 4, but that's just something that I noticed in a lot of his drawings. He does this with his fingers, and you'll see it later, especially in a lot of his Spidey drawings. This is what I call like his turkey feet, his chicken feet hands is what he draws. Again, with all the blue line stuff, love seeing that. And he's talking about, hey, it's 1982, I was not a pro. Look what, I mean, it's not like the greatest, but still, like, brother, you're a pro at this point. I'm sorry. I mean, his cape could definitely use a lot of work, a lot of straight lines and stuff, and it doesn't really flow a lot. That's one of the things that he does talk about with his capes, is he doesn't draw them like cloth or fluid like a lot of people would. He draws them like folded, crumpled paper. Once we do get into Spawn and his later drawings, you do see that a lot, to where his capes, they really aren't folding over natural like you typically would think a cape would do. Like they are folded like a piece of paper, so like they don't have a lot of dimension to them. Very flat looking capes, but how he draws them and gives them layers, that's where the dimension comes in. And this is something that I try to implement as well in my drawings, is you can add dimension just on having one basic character on the page. And when we get into Spidey especially, you really can, we really can pinpoint down what I'm talking about with that. As you can see here, this is, some of those old political cartoons that he was drawing. I believe this was for his mom. But you can see this is kind of like, hey, here's what his mom probably would have asked for. And then this is the Todd version. And what I think is interesting is that his Todd here, you can really see, especially in the I don't even know what you want to call it, like his mask ears on the cowl, how they come to a point down here. He does that in his Wolverines. See what I mean? Again, with the point. There's still a lot of drawings from the 80s. Alright, so these are just some test pages that he was doing. I want to say that he had traced a car and then started to ink over it. A lot of artists don't draw their cars, don't draw motorcycles, things like that. That's not to say that there aren't ones that do. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of time and a lot of effort to draw these things. So a lot of the times you'll get photo reference, trace over top of it, pencil over top of that, ink over top of that. So, it's like 3 or 4 renditions removed from the original thing. I'm pretty sure that this was a trace. This is what I was talking about with his projection letters. He put scans in here of things that he had sent, people he's talked to, when he had sent them, kind of keeping logs of people he sent work to and people who has rejected him. I get it, man. It's like I sent things to Eric Larson, I've sent things to Don Simpson, I've sent things to Jim Rugg, a lot of people, and most of the time, my experience, a lot of them are encouraging, try to push you forward, especially if they see that you have potential in your drawings. I would say, like, more often than not, 60 to 70% of the time, it's just your emails or your submissions just kind of go into the void. You hear that saying, like, don't meet your heroes and whatever else. I mean, the people that I've talked to or spoke to about my art and all that good stuff have been nothing but encouraging. Even my all-time favorite, the dude, I guess, something that I never really had talked about before, but Steve Root had done a art contest, I guess, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I had submitted a drawing into that. Got second place. So, but it was of a camel, actually, of all things, and I've never drawn a camel, and I very rarely draw animals. So I sat for, I don't know, a week or so and just worked on this dumbass camel drawing for this contest. There's actually a stream up on Steve Rude's, or a video I should say, that Steve Rude had put up where he looks over all those drawings and whatnot that got submitted. Having the dude give feedback about your drawing, can't go wrong there. But yeah, I mean, you do stuff like that and, it makes you just want to keep pushing forward, I guess. And just the words of encouragement. Of course, Coyote, kind of where I guess he got his breakthrough. Alright, so getting into a little bit of the creation side of comics. If you guys were curious as to why I keep saying like blue line and things like that, so you can kind of see blue lines. A lot of people, and this is how they worked back in the day, and a lot of people still do this. You work in that hue of, or that tone of cyan when you're penciling, because this won't show up in a scan. So it saves you a lot of time. So when you're penciling and then you ink it, you don't have to go back and erase all of the pencil marks underneath it, because again, it doesn't show up in a scan. So it's a way to save time. So it's a way to save time. I'm getting into when he was doing stuff for DC, Infinity Inc. Of course. One of the things that I love about Infinity Inc. is what is his name? Mr. Bones. Mr. Bones just, yeah, here he is, Mr. Bones. This dude is straight up just Spawn. I'm pretty sure this is a character that he created, Mr. Bones. But yeah, look at it, like, even down to the clasps on the cape. This is Spawn. But he had designed or has been working on Spawn since he was in high school. You definitely see a lot of the influence of his character designs coming over into, yeah, see, look at this. This is straight up just Spawn. But yeah, and Prowler is the other guy that I would really point at, that Todd had drawn, that really has a lot of Spawn in his in the character design influence. The Zoo Crew. Alright, so this is the first Todd issue of the Hulk here, 330. It's kind of a cover, but that's the old debut of Todd on the Hulk. Hulk 340. It's probably the best cover of all time, right? I think that this is probably the cover that's been homaged the most by people. It's been talked about the most. Extremely early in the guy's career. It's pretty impressive, to be honest with you, that he was already slinging out covers that were that impressive. This error here. Had to correct that. I kind of bounce back and forth on if I like 340 or 341 more once we get into the comic book ratings. I guess you'll find out. Same thing with 345, another one of my all-time favorite Hulk covers. I had meant to mention this earlier, kind of talking about getting into the nitty-gritty about creations of comics. But if you look at this, you can see that there's a cut across, and it's not the same hue of light. It's because a lot of the times, the artists aren't actually drawing the logos and things like that on the page. A lot of that is copy paper. It's just pasted on there after the fact, and then they scan that on, and that's how you get your final image. Alright, so this is the G.I. Joe. that he had done. Getting into his Batman stuff, it's not honestly my favorite, and the reason being is because, I don't know, it doesn't come off as, like, dark or, like, gritty to me, if that makes sense. It's like he's still in that Art Adams style of Batman drawing. You definitely can see that here, you know. I guess he doesn't go full McFarlane when he's drawing his Batman. I mean, this is pretty egregious with the capes. See, here's what I was talking about with the chicken fingering, doing this. Every time I see it, I'll try to point it out. He does that a lot, especially in the Spider-Man stuff. There's a bunch of Mary Jane like panels and drawings that I see all the time where they're like this, and hers are the worst because she has like really skinny, you know, feminine hands, fingers. So it just looks terrible. Gotta love his stuff on Spidey. Alright, kind of wanted to stop on this page and just talk about his cartooniness. So I've talked about this drawing specifically before. I did a Christmas special a couple weeks ago, and I pulled out a Spirit Christmas issue, and there is a villain in that specific Spirit story that looks very, very similar to this guy. So if you want to go back and take a look at that video and, you know, see me pull out that Spirit issue and hold these books side by side, you can kind of see those similarities. And obviously Will Eisner, you know, it's influenced literally everybody in comics, so to say that he wasn't an influence on Todd is probably an understatement. Of course, at the Action Comics homage to Superman there. Great Spidey covers. This has to be a Todd taking a picture of himself and using it as reference. Just iconic stuff. When you look at Spider-Man, I don't think there's anybody who drew Spider-Man, you know, and made him more badass than McFarlane. With that being said, I think that I like Eric Larson's Spider-Man a tad bit more, and I think that kind of comes down to, I think it's a good mix between, it's like a McFarlane and a Steve Ditko Spider-Man kind of like marrying each other, and that's just like perfect to me. Again, with the weird ass fingers, they look like turkey basers. They're not crossing over like this, all strange, but they're definitely like weird shaped. But yeah, this is like one of my favorite books that I have. I keep it by my drawing table 24/7. You never know. I really don't use it for reference material, to be honest with you. It's more of like an inspiration thing. I'll just pull it out and kind of look at it when I was doing a lot of the pre-production for this video, looking at notes, you know, pulling photos and whatever else I was doing for it, kind of flipping back through this again. It's just kind of like, man, you know, this is why he is as successful as he is, because Lord have mercy, this dude has had a fucking career. And this is probably like the most egregious example that I have of his fingers being all wonky. But this is probably the most iconic Spider-Man cover, you know, adjectiveless Spider-Man he had done. It's probably arguable that 300 is probably the most iconic Spider-Man cover he did. It's definitely been ripped off the most, and I think having that 300 in the back of the you know, of the cover, just kind of 300, 300, 300, 300. It really is a just striking image. You get a good taste of everything that he has done, and especially if you're into more of the art side of things, a lot of this stuff is just unfinished work or it's just penciled and inked work. So you get all that blue line stuff and whatnot underneath it. One of the more iconic covers. Same thing here with the Wendigo cover there. I love how he draws Wolverine. He's probably like, draws my second favorite Wolverine. Sam Keith probably draws my favorite Wolverine. Todd ain't far off. I'm a sucker for the brown suit. I'm a brown suit guy. That's one of the things, though, is even though his anatomy isn't the greatest, he's still a master at just taking figures and just bending them at will and making them work, even though hands, fingers, you know, whatever, might be all jacked up looking. Homie makes it work. Something that I've kind of noticed, I guess, as time has gone on. I'm curious where he got influence on drawing his buildings. When I look at, especially how he draws cities, it reminds me a lot of Tim Vigil. Kind of a wonky looking mouth on this Venom. Some character sheets and thumbnails. Of course, the death of Captain Stacy. And then there's Marvel Tales that Todd had worked on. The cool image. Little Quasar. See the Kirby Crackle going on there. I guess if you don't know what Kirby Crackle is, it's these dots that are coming off that gives it that look of energy. Jack Kirby is kind of the one who coined that, hence the phrase Kirby dots. Yeah, this is one of my favorite Wolverine pinups that he had done. It's kind of a weird, I guess, like, background and whatnot to have Wolverine in. Definitely more Batman-y Spawn, but still pretty cool drawing. I fucking hate Superman, so I'm not even gonna touch on that. It doesn't even matter who's drawing him or who's doing what with Superman. I just think he's just boring. You know, I'm a fan of the Richard Donner movies. That's about as far as it goes with my my love of the Supes. One of the more iconic stories from when he was at Marvel. You know, he wanted this sword to be going through Juggernaut's eye. Marvel said, nah, you gotta redraw it. Well, they had gone through and done an edit, had the knife away from the face, and then had another panel kind of showing blood, and then him kind of holding his eye, from what I remember. This was something that he got really pissy about, and one of the drivers that kind of pushed him over the edge to finally leave mainstream comics and kind of go and start up his own company. He got sick of censorship, stuff like that. Alright, so that brings us into the Image days here. This is something that's been talked about a million times over, so I'm not really going to get into Image. It's basically just a handful of dudes from Marvel getting sick of the corporate bullshit, and there's like, hey, we're gonna go start our own company. They're screwing us on our royalties, they're screwing us on page rates, they're screwing us on character designs, you know, you name it, screwing us on censorship, so we're gonna go start our own company. They did, and it became basically the biggest thing on the planet. Character design stuff, again, this old logo. Kind of prefer this old logo over the one that they had gone with. Can't remember the name of the guy who had redesigned the Spawn logo for him. Yeah, it's just this old. Maybe if you took like the flames out of it and just kind of kept like these lines on the top. I love how they end up coloring that background. Seeing stuff like this. Image Founding Fathers down here. Now this photo is photoshopped. I can't remember what the name of the guy who's actually in this photo right here in Patricio's spot. Name escapes me right now, but he's not in this photo. He is photoshopped here. Everybody else here, Larson, Liefeld, Farland, Silvestri, and Valentino, Jim Lee, of course. They all look happy there because they're making monies, making shitloads and shitloads of money. See what I mean? I love this old Spawn logo. Maybe take the flames out, like I said. But man, oh, that's kind of cool. Red eyes, I've never noticed that before because, you know, as you think, Spawn with the green energy, which I think is the way to go. But seeing them with those red eyes is really cool. I honestly have never really paid attention to that. It's kind of an interesting thing. Boom, and there he is. Okay, so Tom Orzowski. Sorry if I butchered your name, bud, but he's the one who finalized the Spawn logo. One of the most badass Spawn images right here. It reminds me a lot of like a Star Wars poster. I love Spawn. I'm a big Spawn mark. Spawn is something that unfortunately gets kind of talked down about, especially if you're not into comics or in general you kind of are aware of Spawn. It kind of gets a bad rap. It's very, edgy, whatever you want to say about it, which it definitely is. A lot of the writing is questionable at best, but the drawing and the design, you just cannot go wrong with that. This fucking rat dog. He's got this beautiful, woman here in this dress, and then you just got this ugly ass rat dog down here. Billy Kincaid. One of the more iconic things that happens in Spawn books. You scream, we all scream. It's the most expensive comic ever made. Oh, man. At the end of the day, Todd got the last laugh, because at least Todd isn't roped up in this shit that Neil Gaiman's roped up in now, because, yeah, it's a yikes for me, brother. One of my favorite drawings. All these superhero hands kind of coming through. Medieval Spawn. Fucking badass. The Freak. One of my favorite Bond figures. The dude just comes with a bunch of accessories, a bunch of different weapons and stuff. So he's kind of a cool figure if you're into collecting Spawn. He's a cool figure to grab and use to kind of build out accessories if that's what you're into. But he comes with like a little grab bag sort of thing that he slings around his back. You can put like a little saw blade, a knife, and whatever else he comes with, or have other characters hold them, because that's one of the, like I said, selling points of that Freak figure is all the accessories that he kind of comes with that you can mix and match with other, figures. Man, I feel sorry for the guy who had to color this. What a fucking nightmare that would have been. Like, I feel that way about like a Jeff Darrow drawing. Just what a nightmare that would be to have to sit there and color those pages. Start getting some of that Cthulhu inking, which a lot of people, I guess, like, are more fans of the Cthulhu stuff in the Todd team, Todd penciling and him inking. I'm just straight up, just give me Todd. Have Todd write it, have Todd draw it, have Todd ink it. It's kind of where I'm at on my Spawns. With Spawn, because, we're going to be approaching 400 issues in the near future, which is fucking insane. You kind of only need, a handful of issues to kind of understand what this is and where it's going. There's never going to be an end to the story to Spawn. The story more or less is just throwaway, and it's redundant. It just goes in circles over and over and over again. Having, I don't know, 10 to 30 issues is kind of like a good stopping point for Spawn. Again, talking about the red eye is something I guess I never really noticed and had overlooked. Getting into some of those later Spawn issues. These issues, the later hundreds into the 200s, are just a pain in the ass to find. Those low print runs, they were going from selling millions of comics a week to only thousands. Good homage there to Larson. An homage to Youngblood. Of course, homage to the Spidey. Him homaging himself, the Venom cover, and then homaging himself 300. And it's just kind of talking about collaborations and stuff they had done. This Batman Spawn they had worked with Frank Miller was a very popular book when it had come out at the time, and still is a popular book. However, I am of the mind that it is not good. It's just not. The drawings in it are fine, but it's just kind of a throwaway, one of those throwaway crossover books. Out of all these characters on here, I mean, Spawn probably sticks out the most. It's like the coolest, but Dragon, man. Fucking love Dragon. Okay, I was curious what this is, because this has 2008 dates on it, and these were definitely, drawn with each other. So yeah, this is like a jam piece. So all of them kind of got together and drew this. It's pretty cool. My feet. I was drawing super realistic, semi-realistic feet, similar to a Alex Toth or a Steve Rude would do. I eventually kind of got on to this is what I call a dress shoe shape almost. It's it's squared off. Got into drawing more feet like this, and it's really opened up having me move the leg around in different positions and not have the foot look funny and constantly have to cover up the feet in the drawings, like with smoke or grass or whatever. Okay, so that's going to take us into our next little section here, and we're going to be talking about character designs. My top 3 character designs that Todd had done, not necessarily something that he had worked on or had created himself. So, like for instance, like Spider-Man or whatever, it's just like my favorite overall characters that he draws. So number 3, we got to go with Cygor. So the thing that I love about Cygor is I'm a big kaiju, especially a King Kong fan. So obviously big monkeys, Donkey Kong, all that stuff really speaks to me. It is kind of a crossover, or I guess a collaborated character, I should say, between Cthulhu and Todd. So it's a toss up on the actual design and who created it and all that good stuff down to, you know, the singular creator. Nonetheless, Todd had influence there, so Cygor goes in my number 3 slot. My number 2 slot, and this is because, you know, this isn't a character that Todd had created himself. This is something that we talked about earlier. It's, you know, he made the character the most badass it's ever been. So we're going to be, of course, talking about Spidey. Now I chose this Spidey because I felt like it was a good picture to really emphasize how he can contort the body without it making it look weird. The way that he kind of draws his, you know, the eyes on Spidey is one of the main things that I really love about the design. So, got to give the number 2 design spot to Spidey. Number 1, of course, it's Spawn. Let's be realistic here. I pulled the splash page off of Spawn number 1 when you first see him in the full page spread. As the design, you get everything that you need right off the rip, just from, you know, that first image of Spawn. Get the cape. The only thing that's missing maybe is a gun, you know? Spawn always needs more guns, but in terms of just straight up just character design, again, you know, he's been working on Spawn since he was a kid. The design has had a lot of refinement over the years, and you definitely can see that. Got to give the number 1 spot up for character design to Spawn. Alright, so that's going to lead us on to, you know, when he was working with Kirby, basically being like, hey dude, you had a lot of influence on us, you're hurting for money, the comic book community really fucked you, why don't you come on in under Image and we'll get you paid. Now boy, did they get him paid. This dragon is fucking wonky looking. Todd's big into sports, of course. Kind of crazy that, you know, he was drawing stuff like this in '92 and was working on Spawn at the same time. Really goes to show his, you know, his love for the sport. All right, so that's where we're gonna take another pause. Now we're gonna be talking about my top 3 Spidey covers. Number 3, of course, we gotta give it to Spidey 300. Like I was saying earlier, all those 300s in the background really give that striking image. A lot of people homage Spider-Man 300 for good reason. So that's why that's going in my number 3 slot for Spider-Man covers. Number 2, I gotta go with 318. I'm a really big fan of the Scorpion. I also love how, speaking about this earlier with Todd, he gives dimension on his drawings. So you can kind of just, for example, on this, it's like, have an arm, got a body behind that, got another body behind that, got another body behind that. So you give a lot of things dimension without having to draw complicated things in like 3D perspective. Basically just layer it, if that makes sense, layering things. I love this cover of Spider-Man 318 is the amount of layering that you get. You got this, you know, the web right in the front, leg behind it, of the kneecap, got the thigh behind that, another thigh behind that, so on and so forth. So I really like the depth that the drawing has. And then number 1, got to go to the adjectiveless Spidey. Spider-Man and all the webs, it's iconic. It's extremely badass. It's when people would point to Todd McFarlane Spidey, it's probably the image that's going to come up. Number 1 Spidey comic, of course, is going to be Spidey number 1. All right, let's talk about some Hulk comics. For Hulk covers, my top 3, I'm going to give my number 3 slot to Hulk 344. I really like that, you know, the moon background. Reminds me a lot of E.T., coincidentally, as I'm sure you can imagine. and he probably draws my favorite Hulk, though. I'm a big fan of the square flatheads and the gray skin. Number 2 slot, we're going to be moving over to Hulk 345. Him pulling apart the logo is an awesome look, and the fact that he drew all that in there and it's not pasted in is a testament to his skill as a designer. And I love the contrast of the purple in the back. Hulk 345 number 2. My number 1, of course, we already knew it was going to be Hulk 340. You got Hulk and Wolverine on the cover, and how he got Hulk on the cover, is through the reflection of Wolverine's claws. It's badass. I wouldn't probably go as far as to say it's my favorite cover of all time, but it's definitely probably my favorite Todd cover, and I don't think I'm alone in that. It's iconic. It's been homaged a million times over. There probably isn't a book that has been homaged more than Hulk 340, but that's why it's taking my number 1 spot, because it's just that damn good. Alright, well, let's get into my top 3 Spawn covers. Alright, my number 3 spot for Spawn, one of my favorite covers, is going to go to Spawn 4. I really like the design of Violator. I think he's cool looking, obviously. I think that Todd, in terms of like liquids, saliva, goo, blood, that sort of thing, he draws the best out of any artist. Having that pictured right on the front of that, saliva just kind of getting stretched and flung everywhere is really awesome. And that's the reason why it's in my number 3 spot. Okay, my number 2 Spawn cover by the Todd father is going to be Spawn number 21. This cover, I'm a big fan of Duran Duran, and I guess kind of that synth wave, synth pop, that sort of look and genre. And that's what this reminds me of, with like the whites and the pinks. It really sticks out to me in terms of the other Spawn covers that are out there. That's why I had picked this, because it sticks out, and it's early-ish in Spawn. They never really messed around with like kind of minimalistic, bold, bright-colored covers like this. So again, that's kind of why it stuck out to me. So my number 2 slot for Spawn covers is going to be 21. And if you are a fan of the channel, or you've been here before, watched a couple of my videos, you should know that my favorite Spawn cover of all time is going to be in this number 1 slot, and of course it's going to be Spawn number 2. Spawn 2, I love the color on it. Dark, it's brooding, how it should be. He's in a graveyard, the purples with the orange. It's just the color combination of everything. What else can you say about it? It's just one of those images that when I think of Spawn, this is the very first thing that I think of, is always this cover. Gotta give my number 1 spot for Spawn comics cover to Spawn number 2. So Todd has had obviously a very long career. He's drawn a million covers. So I thought to myself, how would I be able to kind of pinpoint down my top 3 Todd covers without getting too wild? Because like I said, he's drawn a million things, so it's very easy to get into the weeds. So I thought that I would limit myself to the categories that I rated here. So that way, we just got Spidey, Spawn, and Hulk kind of just thrown into the mix. So I felt like the easy thing to do would be, hey, take my top 3 comics from those categories and then pin them together, and then that's how I'm going to get my top 3 Todd comics. So number 3, we're going to be going with Spidey number 1 for my top Todd covers. Number 2, we're going with Spawn number 2 for my top Todd covers. For the number 3 for my top Todd covers, this shouldn't be a secret to anybody, Hulk 340. Again, it's probably the most iconic cover in comics, period. You could probably make the argument for like, Action Comics, or you can make the argument for like Amazing Fantasy, possibly, with Spidey on the front. Hulk 340, man, I think that is the cover in comics. It's so basic, just in terms of the design, but nobody else had thought about that before then, and then after it's been done, everybody's been ripping it off. So that's how important that cover is in the grand scheme of things. So my top 3 covers again are going to be for Todd in general. 3 is Spidey number 1 and the Torment run that he had done. number 2 is Spawn number 2. And my top number 1 Todd cover is going to be Hulk 340. Okay, now we're getting into some toy stuff. Like I said, I love this book. It gets into everything. Like, it gets into stuff that he had done before he was even into comics, and then it touches into movies, his toy stuff. And to be honest with you, I kind of like his toy side of things more than the comic side of things, even though he's like a top 3 guy for me. My love for toys runs deep, and McFarlane Toys is one of those companies that I hold very near and dear to my heart. So if you're unfamiliar with the whole thing with McFarlane Toys and all of that, so he, wanted to start a toy company because he was going to all these toy shows, taking Spawn with them, trying to get toys created, and, Hasbro's, your Mattels, and what have you, were basically being like, nah, brother, nobody's going to make toys like this. It's going to be too expensive, nobody's going to buy them, so on and so forth. These things are for kids, whatever. So then, of course, in classic Todd fashion, he said, fuck you, I'm going to do it myself. So he created his own toy company. When he first started the toy company, the logo looked exactly like this, but instead it said Todd Toys on it. He had changed the name from Todd Toys to just McFarlane Toys because Mattel was getting ready to release the Barbie toy Todd. He didn't want to get sued from Mattel for having like a Todd Toys and then Mattel having a Todd Toys. So he just kind of, I guess, mitigated that and changed it to McFarlane. The first like wave or two of Spawn toys that did go out did have the Todd Toys logo on it. So this is Overt Kill. He has started releasing figures kind of in this old blister style packaging, which is awesome. This harkens back to the original toys that he was making, so he should be doing that. However, it's terrible for the environment, obviously, all that plastic, but it's the way to go. So yeah, I figured I would show off some, packaging, kind of what he was doing early in the toy process, because this is from the very first wave. Kind of see there, you got Spawn, Tremor, Medieval Spawn, again with the Overt Kill. In the Spawn Alley playset, hasn't even been made yet. It's just a design drawing. It's on a super expensive playset. You can get that thing for like 50 to 100 bucks, kind of depending if it's boxed or not. Have all the pieces. It's something that's been on my list for a while to grab. I've never seen it out in the wild, so it's definitely something that I would have to grab off of eBay. Haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. It's something that I'm interested in. So yeah, Overkill. But, ladies and gentlemen, don't worry, because we're also going to rate some toys. Like I said, my love for especially McFarlane Toys runs real deep, and I have loads and loads of them. So I figured, hey, I'm going to pull 3 of my favorite toys that might be in my collection that I can easily show off in this video. And we'll take a look at them, some of the different things he had made. You can kind of see here's like the more modern McFarlane Toys logo. All the different properties that he's worked on. Have a couple of his movie maniacs and all that crazy stuff that he's done. Music stuff. Got a couple figures for. Absolutely love this book. Just the things that you get in here is just crazy. One of my favorite clown figures down here. However, they're missing an accessory in this photo. There should be a piece of pizza, I'm pretty sure. A little bit of toy knowledge. This is kind of interesting here, is when you look at this, his head was pasted on after the fact. You can kind of see a piece of paper, and then there's tape going over top of it. So he had redesigned the face afterwards. But yeah, they're talking about the development of the cartoon, which I would judge to say that the animated cartoon that they did for HBO is probably the best thing that you can buy for Spawn, and that I would recommend to buy. If you haven't read Spawn, maybe you're thinking about getting into it, and you're kind of like, I don't know much about it. The animation is a great gateway to get into the book, I think. And to be honest with you, it's better than any of the comic books that you're going to pick up for Spawn. The cartoon is fucking amazing. It just is, like, stylistic wise, it's awesome. Definitely a lot of Akira influence in the animation style. It's just one of those things that you have to buy, and you can easily pick up the DVD through like Amazon or whatever has it, and I think that you can watch the cartoon on HBO. So we're kind of just looking at concepts and whatnot for backgrounds for the characters. You kind of see what I mean with that, like anime influence with like the shading and stuff that you would see in like an Akira or even like a Golgo 13. Todd inking and coloring digitally, it says. Getting into the Spawn movie, which it's okay. I mean, the Spawn movie I love and hate. I think that it has good things in it, and I think it has bad things in it. You know, it's kind of a mixed bag. My thing with the Spawn movie, though, is that people are really holding on to that they're going to be making a new Spawn movie and it's going to be good, man. If you want my personal opinion, don't do a live action movie. Like, do a Into the Spider-Verse style of animation and make an animated Spawn movie. Everybody loves the cartoon already to begin with, and I think if you kind of play off of, you know, the Spawniverse, I guess you could say, with like the Scorched and all that kind of crap, you kind of have, you know, Gunslinger Spawn, Medieval Spawn. You have all these different characters that you could do like a Into the Spawniverse style movie, and I think that would be the way to go. And then, hey, if the animation goes well, then that will open up the eyes to companies, be like, hey, oh, yeah, this worked out, so let's go ahead and maybe do a live action movie. Trying to do a live action movie of Spawn and, you know, almost 2025 here is not the play. Stuff that he did for Korn. It kind of gets into that here a little bit. The various pop culture things that he had worked on outside of just comics, music videos, album covers, all that good stuff. Alright, well, it looks like we're kind of out of the toys now for the most part. So let's go ahead and put this aside and let's talk about some more toys before we get too far into this. So let's talk about my top 3 toys. So my number 3 spot is kind of more of a modern figure. It's going to be Haunt. So we're going to have some B-roll, some overview to show these off a little better than what I can. I don't have like a display like light box or anything, so filming these, not the easiest thing for me to do show these off. I said, he's more of a modern character. The detail in these things, it's still just crazy what he is doing, and he's still doing toys at a great price like he was doing back in the 90s. For the quality that you get. So my number 3 spot right now for my Todd toys, gonna go to Haunt. Number 2 Todd toy, gonna be the Super Patriot. I'm a big Eric Larson fan, as you guys know. Super Patriot is a Eric Larson thing, so why not put out a Super Patriot toy? You'd think that maybe make Dragon or something like that. I know that Playmates was making the Dragon toys for the cartoon, but you think there would have been more like X-Force, things like that, Cyberforce, and whatever that Todd would have put out. But this is one of the few things for other properties of Image guys that he had done. And again, we'll show some more B-roll footage of this, but this is one of my favorite guys. It's not like the most complex figure in the world in terms of like, you know, the articulation or anything like that. It's one of the older ones. It does have interchangeable arms. Kind of see that in the B-roll footage you can see here. It's just my love for Eric Larson in general is why I have this in my number 2 spot, Super Patriot. All right, my number 1 toy, ladies and gentlemen. This thing is a massive honker. A lot of this is gonna help with B-roll. We got Cygor 2 from Wave 12. This is a mid-range toy in terms of the years that he had done, so it's not a super early toy, it's also not a super late toy. You can see we got real chains on here. Again, we kind of talked about Cygor, my favorite designs. This is probably my favorite Cygor design in general, is this one specifically. I love all the wires kind of hanging off of them and the chains hanging off of them. One of my favorite things about this toy, this thing pops open his chest because he's just a cyborg. Even inside here, he got wires and everything. It's all detailed. He comes apart and he's got like a little cyber monkey that is also articulated. and kind of hang out by himself. But yeah, just all that detail in there, all the wires and stuff that are hanging out. Yeah, this is just a badass toy, man. I was gonna say they just don't make them like they used to, but that would be false, because Todd is still making some badass toys. Especially, he's making badass Spawn toys still. He just did a Kickstarter for a medieval Spawn, and that thing is fucking badass, man. Igor is gonna be my #1 spot. I just wanted to pull this as well, just kind of show you guys the different styles of packaging that he had done. This is probably my second favorite packaging that they had done. I'm a really big fan of, this series where it's more purple lightning and blue in the background, but this is still, you can kind of see it in the back. It's like a Dark Knight Returns style. There was a run of packaging they had done where that was just the complete background without all of this at the top. I really prefer that. But Sam and Twitch are probably my two favorite characters in the Spawn universe that are just like normal humans. See that ridiculous designs on the weapons. And then as well on the back here, you see that we got all these early-ish Spawn figures. Yeah, you can see it's still kind of early, so this is showing off Series 5, so this is Wave 5. So you got Super Patriot, which we showed off. The Freak I talked about. So like, these are like two of my favorite toys right there. I don't think I have Battleclad Spawn. I don't have any of these other ones. I do own Nuclear Spawn. I think I have Tremor 2 as well. And then the Total Chaos stuff, I don't own any of that. But I just kind of wanted to show off, the packaging. We'll show off a little bit more in B-roll. Kind of want to, again, just the different designs of packaging that he had throughout time. And since we're getting into the movie stuff, figured I would take a pull of one of his DC Multiverse figures that McFarlane does. Because as time goes on, his detail just gets better and better and better and better. So this is Batman Forever. So this is supposed to be Val Kilmer. But yeah, crazy. Batman Forever isn't my favorite Batman movie, but it is my favorite Batman movie aesthetically. I really like the stage production on it. I really like the aesthetics of it. So the green neon, all that good stuff. It's just aesthetically, I love how that movie looks. The art direction in it, it's amazing. Nice cloth cape, no wire. But really cool figure. I have this whole run, so I got the Jim Carrey Joker and Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face and the Chris O'Donnell Robin, and they all kind of have build a figure to make a bat. I have that, and if you're curious to see those, I put out a toy / kind of comic short, I guess, is kind of showing off a little bit of my collection of things that I have out and displayed. So if you want to take a look at those, I do have that short up. But yeah, I figured I would just go ahead and kind of pull this and just show it off, just, the progress that he's made, that his toy company's made over time, the details and whatnot. But yeah, man, this is straight up to a T Val Kilmer from Batman Forever. And if you're curious what my favorite Batman movie was, it's the '89 Batman movie. On most days, I will say that the '89 Batman movie is my favorite movie of all time. All right, so let's go ahead and keep on going. So like I said, this book has literally everything in it. So it was a good way for me to kind of talk about Todd and his career and run down a bunch of different things that, he had done. Kind of keep flipping here. And then we're looking at Haunt. Like I said, he's one of my favorite newer characters in Spawn. I think he's just fucking badass. He's obviously influenced heavily by Spider-Man in terms of his design, but I love him. I don't care. I think Haunt is awesome. I think he's one of my... Like I said, he's one of my favorite newer characters, if not my favorite new character in the Spawn universe. So I thought that to wrap up the video, I would recommend 3 things of Todd's that you can still readily go out and pick up. So my number 3 recommended thing to go and pick up for Todd is going to be the Spider-Man Complete. This is going to collect issues 1 through 14 of the Adjectiveless Spider-Man run that Todd had done. Book, there's been various covers on it. The cover that you're seeing here is the cover that I like, and that's I believe the first printing. Subsequent printings is just the Spider-Man cover of number 1. Number 2 thing that I would recommend to pick up is going to be any of the Spawn Origin books. So obviously I would recommend to start at number 1. There is the hardcover, and there is a paperback. This is the hardcover, so they just started reprinting this year. So you should still be able to easily find number 1. So they've reprinted 1 and 2, and they're about to do 3. 3 is not out yet, I don't believe. It may have come out and I missed it, but I don't think it had come out yet. So this collects issues 1 through 12 in a larger format. So it's bigger than comic book size. You get the hardcover, and then as well, it is going edge to edge. So there's bleed on all of this. It is the best way to start reading Spawn. That is something that I see that gets asked or brought up a lot in the Spawn community for people who, pop into like the Spawn subreddit or whatever, and is like, I haven't read Spawn. There's 500 million issues, and I don't know where to start. Start at number 1 and see if you like it, and just go from there. You can find, Spawn in every comic book store and back issue bins because they, printed a million of those things. But like I said, the Origin Collection's the way to go. It's going to be the cheapest option. It's going to be the best, well collected. It's oversized. It goes edge to edge. There's bleed. So this is the way to go if you're going to be getting Spawn. I got the first couple of books of this. They also did a archive, as what's called like Archive Vault Edition. Basically, is what that is. It's the same book, but it is the artist edition. So there isn't any coloring or anything like that. It's just the pencil and the inking of it. They had also done that. Image had also done that for Savage Dragon. They also have Savage Dragon Origins collection. I have a couple of books of that as well. But like I said, this is, if you're going to get into Spawn or want to get into Spawn, in terms of a reading capacity, this is the way to do it. And then my number 1 thing I'm going to recommend for you guys to pick up is, of course, the book that we were just looking at. We flipped through about every page almost in this book. We stopped and talked about a lot that was in here. You saw what was in this book, so really don't need to, beat a dead horse. But of course, this is the thing I'm going to recommend to pick it up. It's super thick. It covers the dude's entire career. It's been 10 years plus since this thing has come out, so obviously he has done things since. But I don't think there is going to be any other book that comes out. They might do a revised version of this, which I think would be the play, would be just to go in and just add the last 10 years that he's done with like Gunslinger, Spawn, and so on and so forth, and whatever else he's done with his toys, and add it into this book. This book is just a big fluff piece for Todd, which it's his own art book, so why wouldn't it be? But if you're a fan of Todd, if you're a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of toys, if you're a fan of pop culture, whatever it might be, this book is a must-buy in my opinion. Alright, well, we rated some covers, we rated some designs, so why don't you go ahead, comment down below, tell me what your favorite Todd comics might be, or what your favorite Todd toys might be. Alright, well, as always, thanks for hanging out and talking comics. Thanks everyone, have a good rest of your day.